Zelensky's game. In general, he comes with the bad intention of restoring solidarity to Kuchma. Do you remember there was a meme that the Porokobots spread around, like, what's the difference? Do you remember? He came to this and said, well, what's the difference? Let's just live in harmony. But living in harmony was no longer possible. Society was already divided. And this, what's the difference for him? Morning, afternoon, and evening, night and day. Through thick and thin. What's the difference? There is a difference. Everything is different. There is the right Ukraine. There is... And it started and went on. And it led to war. So the game of 22, Ukraine has shown itself as a military and political player of global stature with a united frontline action. We successfully reclaimed parts of the territory, reputation across the globe, so 2022 is in our favor. It's in our favor. The game of 2023. Almost clean. Clean without any. The Russians acted like idiots with their columns, which move in hundreds without any clear direction and disappear, like in some kind of fog, literally. The game of 2023. Since Ukraine turned out to be completely dependent on Western supplies of military resources, financial and geopolitical support, including protection from nuclear war, to ensure who constantly remain silent and try not to take into account. Politics began to dominate over military strategy. We lost Bakhmut, which we had turned into a global meme. Then we tried to make up for Bakhmut, spread our forces over 2 main strikes, but that was already later. Yes, and we lost.
Yes, what is the basic characteristic that you are talking about? Lack of maneuver.
Yes.
We started losing the moment we stopped maneuvering. And when we excluded, it's like today I was talking to one of the officers. There's a problem now on one of the sections of the front. And he tells me, well, I see how this has been repeated dozens of times. Right now, several companies are in the process of being surrounded. And he says, I will talk about this in every possible place everywhere after the war, because it's just absolutely ridiculous. It keeps happening. Lack of maneuver.
Look, now we will try to describe this in one paragraph. Within Ukraine, for many reasons, due to Western pressure, due to the comprador activities of Western corrupt officials taking grants from the USSD, and internal corrupt officials, the activities of national patriots dividing society, the destruction of a united society is occurring. A well-known journalist writes that we have no rear. Our rear is the West, like you stinking goats. But somehow I still can't forgive him. And the destruction of the military-political unity of power, Zaluzhny's departure, volunteers are leaving, the front is sagging, demoralizing. This is the game of 2023. The game of 2024 began with the limitation of Western military aid. Russia's advancement on the front in Ukraine was imagined. And let's look at my post from 2014. Oh my God, August 14th, 2024. It's clear that the post was about our brilliant operation entering Kursk, well, the Kursk region. Here's what I wrote.
Which again was about what? A maneuver.
A maneuver. A brilliant maneuver. And then literally a few days later, I write a post. Everyone was troubled by the question, what is the action of the armed forces around Kursk? This is the second because it is about defense and salvation from defeat. The sixth because it is about attack and possibly victory. Why the 36th stratagem? Because it supposedly is the best, but only postpones the resolution of the issue of war. So the 36 stratagems of ancient China. The second, take his block to save Java. The 36th, raised in the east to attack in the west. The 36th, the best of the stratagems. That is, we use it for defense, for subsequent offense, or later we retreat ineffectively. So what was the outcome like the 36th? So I then asked the question, do you guys have a plan? Silence. Do you have a plan behind this? Silence. And everyone backed out. So the maneuver was not bad. It could have been used brilliantly. That's how it could have been done. But due to the lack, firstly, of a good, strong plan, due to division, well, kind of due to the lack of, well, because there was a previous division, but the current military leadership doesn't want to say anymore that war is the business of military strategists. No, they went for the political part, so you got a purely political conduct of the war, and here we are in this situation. Within Ukraine, the state is dying, society is collapsing, the anti-Putin coalition is becoming passive. Game 25. Clearly it's related to the arrival of the new president. Yes. My post from January 20th. Until the evening, the beginning of the infodemic storm, I listened to MKOR 24, Song of the Last World, the song's Transmission of Light. I still have an hour to reminisce until now. It's already the third month, right? Trump betrayal continues, and in fact, we still have no idea what kind of game is happening. Such a number of comments were not seen after the arrival of any president. There were no such number of comments either against or regarding any negotiations. Last time, of course, we tried to analyze this Trump revolution and sort of. But for those who want, they can watch that broadcast. That's exactly why I made an attempt to talk with Ebery in order to have a meaningful conversation. So, as expected, Zelensky finally arrives, and as you might have guessed, they tell him that you don't have strong cards. And he, responds that he didn't come here to play cards at all. Well, look, what immediately concerned me here. Well, I've already mentioned games can provide an advantage unavailable in any struggle, in any war.
Note, Vance and Stramp constantly talk about this, that you have a trail of trumps. They are currently in a gaming situation at the moment.
Well, let's talk about this in more detail. Kukma is a brilliant preference player. Right? Yeah. Did he play preference or was it something else? All our subsequent presidents, it's unknown whether they liked any games, such as board games or not at all, or any specific ones in particular. Were they good at them? So we are dealing with presidents who are not players, moreover, who also have an unfavorable attitude towards games. In fact. Because, well, yes, we can say that Zelensky is a player on stage, but that's exactly the kind of game where you, in fact, play according to a written script. Where you can't certainly improvise, or you improvise absolutely within certain limits. Where you can't play outside the rules, where you can't go beyond the boundaries. That's exactly what just bothers me. That's exactly what bothers me. So, Zelensky with a pulse with Trump, certainly, I don't play cards, but I would say this, dear President, if Rudina demands to play, indeed, play. And if it so happens, then you can play cards, backgammon, hopscotch, or jump rope with the girls. If the Homeland says play, then indeed play, because that's your job. If they tell you to play cards, sit down and play cards. If they tell you to play chess, sit down and play chess. Is this indeed the fate of any president, or a duty? You must play any hand you're dealt. Any hand. What is this? Stop saying, I am the card of Nero myself. And if your country is at stake, and you need to win, you must play. You must play. And if God plays for you, you can win even without knowing how to play cards. Because when it comes to the fate of the country, indeed, God watches over it. You cannot refuse this game. You must sit down and play. And so I was a little upset with him for that. You cannot refuse to play when you are offered to play. Especially when it comes to the strange social networks. You cannot do that.
Well, look, he is actually playing, it was a rhetorical device in that context, because he is meeting with Macron now. There will be a press conference soon, and before that, he came to the States, he talked about something in Britain with the Brits, then returned again with the Brits and talked not only. So he is definitely playing his own game.
It wasn't like that. Well, I just see it from a different perspective. Just so you know, as you might imagine, he was persuaded by all of Europe, the whole world, including the British monarch, and he was taught to play by the advisor to the British Prime Minister. I have it somewhere here. Let me see, I think. It wasn't Zelensky's game during the negotiations. He said that the British Prime Minister's advisor, I have it somewhere here, I'll find it, I'll tell you, that if you do this and that, then you put them in a bind, and then you have these kinds of moves. So, it turns out we don't have this kind of school. We don't have a comprehensive institute that can calculate all this and consult him. We don't have people who can advise him on how to play in this situation in any way. But think about it. The country is in a survival situation as if its existence is threatened and the president doesn't know how to play at all. So we are indeed in an extremely bad situation. A terrible one. Noted.